NFL will meet to vote on how to handle the AFC Championship game. This after the NFL paused the Bills-Bengals game when Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsed in cardiac arrest. That game will not be rescheduled. The most important part of this story, though, is that Hamlin is making some big progress. Doctors say while he remains on a ventilator, he can move his hands and feet, and he's beginning to communicate in writing.
First question that he wrote when he started to awaken was did we win?
And by the way, the nurse's response, you won. You won in the game of life. Doctors said Hamlin was surprised he had been out for so long. They say he's showing signs of improvement with his brain function and his vitals. His team held a press conference after the encouraging news. Bills coach Sean McDermott talked about the assistant athletic trainer who performed CPR to keep Hamlin alive.
You talk about a real leader, a real hero in saving Damar's life, and just admire his strength.
So now to talk more about this is our 9 Health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli. I mean, everyone's talking about this. Everyone has eyes on this. So what are doctors saying about his condition currently?
You know, I'm thrilled with his progress. It's only been a couple of days, and he's following commands. He's moving all his extremities, and he's communicating. And that tells us a lot about his neurological function. In fact, they actually commented that there's no radiographical signs of any sort of neurological dysfunction.
Wow.
Meaning his brain looks good, probably on the scans. Because he's moving his arms and legs, we think his spinal cord is probably okay, because you can imagine he fell backwards from a standing position. You can very easily sustain a spinal cord trauma when that happens. So neurologically, I'm thrilled. I'm even very thrilled with his progress from a ventilatory standpoint, from his lung function. Now, he's still on the breathing tube because a lot of things have to happen before that breathing tube will come out. But the fact that he's, able to communicate and breathing on his own, it's tremendous.
I think a lot of people were concerned about the brain function because, again, they performed CPR for 10 to 15 minutes on the field. But as you were saying, the blood, because of that, was pumping to the brain, and it looks like that good CPR paid off.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, every minute that you're down, even if you're getting good CPR, reduces your chances of survival by 7 to 10%.
Wow.
So the fact that he got it immediately, and the fact that it was high quality CPR, and we're all going to learn CPR now, that's the big takeaway here. I really think it made the difference between life and death here.
So what's the next step in the progress? Is it getting the breathing tube out?
That's right. So the next step will be he's breathing on his own, but the reason the tube is probably in is because he's needing a little bit of support.
Okay.
So with the things that have to happen for that breathing tube to come out are he has to completely breathe on his own. He has to have very little oxygen and very little support from the ventilator. In other words, his muscles are inhaling and sucking in the breath rather than the ventilator pushing it in. He has to have very few secretions, because you can imagine if he has a lot of mucus or plugging and he's not able to clear those because he's weak from the arrest, that can affect it. And then the last part of that is he has to protect his airway. That means he has to be able to cough, he has to have the gag reflex, he has to be able to clear something if it's about to go down the wrong tube.
Talk about timing. My producer just got on my ear and she said 2 minutes ago they announced that his breathing tube was pulled out, which is incredible. Great. Incredible progress, right? Here we are, it's Friday. This happened on Monday. Whoa.
This is a testament to 24-year-old organs. So the fact is that his underlying substrate was probably really good, and that high-quality CPR protected those organs. And the fact that the breathing tube is out, I was a little worried when I'd heard he was positioned on his stomach, because that's for something called acute respiratory distress syndrome, which his doctors confirmed he had, where fluid just fills the lungs after this kind of an arrest. The inflammatory cells go in there and they just flood the lungs with fluid. So you're drowning, essentially. And that's the reason they had put him on his tummy. So to go from being on his tummy 2 days ago to now getting the breathing tube out, breathing on his own, obviously protecting his airway, like I said, is just a testament to the fact that he was probably very healthy going into it. And also the doctors have done a really nice job of getting that fluid off his lungs.
What happens now? Do they want him to speak? Is it about getting up, moving more of the limbs? What happens?
So things that I'm waiting to hear about are his kidneys and his liver. Those are two organs that can get very damaged when you have this kind of an arrest, and that can create potential long-term impacts if he had permanent damage to his kidneys and such. So hopefully he's not needing dialysis or anything like that. He's making urine on his own. The next several weeks, sometimes even months, are going to be about getting him stronger, about doing rehabilitation after what he's gone through. And to me, most importantly, as a cardiologist, figuring out what happened, whether he needs an internal defibrillator to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, I think they wanted to take a closer look at the heart to make sure it wasn't something that they missed maybe before, or if it was the commotio cordis, thing that we've been talking about as well. So incredible recovery so far for him. Thank you so much for coming in.